Hey there, everybody. This is Amazing Fantasy Football. I am Josh, and that guy over there is...
I'm Chris.
And Chris, he always is. How you doing tonight, Chris?
I'm doing wonderful. It's Thursday.
Excellent.
I get to talk fantasy football and football with my buddy Josh. Life is good. How about you?
I'm doing all right.
A little
I believe you got
overworked,
some...
little overworked and underappreciated.
I got a disclaimer for my notes going forward for this week is that I got the third COVID shot on Tuesday. So half of my notes were done yesterday while I had a fever afterwards. And I'm saying that because
do these notes get psychedelic or anything?
we'll find out. Hopefully not. I didn't have a reaction to the first two. Like my arm my arm barely hurt after the first two.
Yeah,
And yesterday
yeah.
my arm was killing me and I had a fever. And the worst part of it is that I was barely awake when I did these notes. Like it wasn't even the fever. I was just so tired. It was so just
a physical and mental
it.
exhaustion. Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah, which apparently was thinking. Never had a headache.
Oh,
and I could make some jokes about them injecting me with some tracking, GPS tracking whatevers and yada yada, but that's not really
what I like the best from, I don't know, several months ago is your cell phone reception better? Yeah, actually. That one made me chuckle.
Okay, and so just real quick side note here.
Mm-hmm.
If the government had a GPS tracker that was so microscopic that they could disguise a vaccine as a way to inject it. Mm-hmm. Don't you think that they would have found another way to do it already?
And don't you don't you think we'd have drones the size of this remote,
like a pin,
coaster,
like a push
or
pin,
a coaster? Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's how things work.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily get the cutting edge, especially if it's like military stuff. But anyway.
And at this point, if you're listening to the show and you're an anti-vaxxer and everything, that's fine. I'll deal with zero listeners, but y'all are wrong. I'm sorry, y'all are wrong. Let's move on into some news and go not go completely down this rabbit hole because I'm gonna get upset and I'm all about having some fun.
That's what Thursdays are about, my friend. Fantasy fun.
What Thursdays are about. So why don't you start us off with some news, Chris?
Some news. I've got a thing over here with a bunch of news on it. Let me get that pulled right up for you, sir. All right. We've got Dalvin Cook. He practiced Thursday with an ankle. That update was like 6 or 7 hours old. So that's great news for a lot of fantasy fans out there. TJ Hawkinson was limited Thursday with a knee. There's a little scuttlebutt about that. I'm a little concerned about that. I'll leave it at that and keep your eye on it. Elijah Moore, the Jets wide receiver, gets in a full practice today, Thursday, after being in the concussion protocol. Looks like all systems are go. Gronk did not practice Thursday. No surprises there. I didn't think he was going to go with those ribs. Giants wide receivers, Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton both did not practice with hamstrings today. I thought I had something on Galladay. I think it was minor enough to not include it in the headliner news, but I included it in the matchup.
Yeah, not that I know of.
Yeah, it's more of him just being I don't know, a diva. We'll
quick
call it
side
that.
Note, Chris.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Quick side note. You talked about some ribs. I made some ribs last weekend.
Oh, man.
Now, they weren't so tender that you could literally just pull the bone out because I've had those ribs before. But this rib rub that I had on these ribs was freaking delicious. And if you want that recipe, you can't have it because I don't know it because I don't measure anything out. I just kind of throw some stuff together. But this is so good, rub. Oh my God, it was so good.
Heavenly.
I'm sorry. Keep going.
Heavenly. Where were we?
I like ribs.
Giants wide receivers out of the way. Here's a big one. Christian McCaffrey trending in. He said he could definitely play. Quote, he has a good feel for it. Apparently I didn't type the quote up. Yeah. I like how I had a quote but didn't type it out. Limited. He was limited Thursday and Wednesday. But yeah, I really speaking of having a good feel for it, I think he's going to go. So the waiver the fab spender uppers for for Mr. Chuba Hubbard. I think he's still going to have
Who
value moving
didn't
forward.
do much at all last week, really.
Well, I think it had a little bit to do with Dallas and
He had
Dallas scoring more.
something like I'm just pulling this off the top of my head, but he had like something like 6 fantasy points, like half PPR fantasy points last week. It was not good.
Yeah, they did a decent. Dallas did decent versus the run, plus Carolina needed to throw. It comes up later, but I think also I know for a fact that DJ Moore was lined up in the backfield once or twice, and
DJ Moore had a good game.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that, especially in Dynasty. Anyway,
Screw you.
Jimmy Garoppolo did not practice Thursday with a calf. As far as I'm concerned, the impression I'm getting is we're going to see a Trey Lance game here.
Sounds like Trey Lance is going to play.
Yeah, and again, that'll come up later in matchups. The Titans receivers, A.J. Brown practiced both Wednesday and Thursday with a hamstring. Julio did not practice both Wednesday and Thursday with a hamstring.
So how do you feel about like Josh Reynolds and the other guy whose name is escaping me because he has like 4 of them going up? I mean, it's another soft matchup against Jacksonville this week. They have the Jets, which isn't that soft, but as one might think. But Jacksonville's like just bottom at the bottom.
The answer off the top of my head would be, well, not top of my head. I did some research on the matchup. Is that I don't think there'll be enough points to go around to feed other passing options. I think AJ Brown is. I think
the correct answer is stay tuned for that matchup.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. Steelers say, quote, heck no on benching Big Ben. Calvin Ridley
should.
Calvin Ridley is not making the trip to London. He is literally ruled out. Personal matter is what I read. That's all I got. Related to that, Gage, the receiver for Atlanta, is also out with an ankle.
That would be Russell Gage.
Thank you. Why do I always want to call him Justin Gage? Why?
Who's Justin Gage?
I have no idea. Is that like...
Ooh.
You're gonna look it
Josh
up.
likes doing this. Yes, I do.
I've got like 4 or 5 bullet points left. Let me finish the news real quick while you do that. Elijah Mitchell, running back, Niners, limited Thursday shoulder. I need this guy in the lineup. Chase Edmonds, this is kind of concerning. Did not practice Thursday, shoulder, worked on side. Now I did get the impression in reading the blurb that he's been having a little maintenance. He's been playing well, so maybe we're not too concerned, but let's keep an eye on that. Josh Jacobs was a full go Thursday practice from his ankle.
Oh, yeah.
TJ Hawkinson was limited Thursday with a knee. He is truly questionable, is what I read. And George Kittle, calf, did not practice Thursday. The impression I got from that news is that this is kind of a thing, a dance they do every week. So he should be all right.
So Justin Gage spelled exactly like how Russell Gage spells his last name.
I'm a little worried.
G-A-G-E. No, it's and this is where you're thinking. This is what you're thinking about. You're thinking about Justin Gage. He played for the Titans back in the day. Like, and by back in the day, I mean like,
like I'm an old man back in the day,
10, 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, like when I was like watching a ton of football. Yeah. Now
Justin Gage spelled like G-A-G-E is not a person.
Yeah, I definitely meant G-A-G-E.
But G-A-G-E is wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans.
From like 15 years ago.
He was drafted in the 5th round in 2003. He played for them for at least a few years. And blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that guy. So, yeah. No, not that guy.
Oh, I'm sorry. He was originally drafted by the Bears. That's right. From 2003 to 2006 and 2007 to 2010, he was with the Titans. I remember him being with the Titans, so whatever. I mean, he had a 7-year career. That's not too bad. I'm sorry, 8-year career. That's not shabby for the NFL. Anyways, let's go. I'm sorry. What else did you have with the news?
That was it.
What about I thought of something and then I lost it. Oh, news is that Justin Fields has, for whatever reason, been named the starter for the rest of the season.
How did I leave that out? Bears. I could have sworn I
know you have the Bears matchup this week.
Yeah, but maybe that's why I didn't include it.
Before you get there, here's like, and you posted in our Discord that you thought that, or it was in our Dynasty League chat.
Sure. Yeah.
That you thought that Justin Fields looked pretty good last week. I thought it was the exact opposite.
did.
I thought he looked very unpolished, and that he needed a lot of practice still. Like a lot of his throws were just not on target, even while throwing in the pocket or. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm just being a contrarian to Chris and whatever. I was like
right.
legitimately, I watched that game.
I was victim of watching, 15 minutes of a game. Basically, that's what happened.
I watched a good part of it.
I did.
Because I was like, oh, that's right, Justin Fields. I want to see how he actually does.
I don't want to be clear. I thought
this was against the Lions too. Like I was hoping. It's only his second start.
Point. It was more of a hoping kind of like, hey, ... not looking too shabby, and then it didn't look so great after that. So, yeah, I would agree with you there.
Okay, yeah, it was just like I saw something completely different, and that's not to say that he can't improve compared to what he did against the What was that team he did really bad against?
His debut.
The Bears. No, he plays for the Bears.
True.
Well, he was really bad for the Bears. But yeah, against the Lions, I was like, I feel like against the Lions, you could do a little bit better than what you're doing right now there, buddy. But whatever.
It was the Bears versus the Browns. Remember, me and you were kind of like,
oh yeah, a little ate him for lunch. That's right.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So,
but yeah, that's something to take into account too when you're thinking about your and your Allen Robinsons and your Darnell Mooney's too.
That will come up later for sure.
I would I'd like to speak once you're done.
And here in
talking points.
And here in a handful of weeks, few weeks, whatever you want to call it, we might even be having some coaching changes discussions.
We'll see.
I
just don't know what's behind Matt Nagy for them to really
that's
be
a fair
like
criticism. Yeah. I tend
and sometimes when fans are outcrying for the coach's head and everything, you have to also think about like what's behind this coach.
Mm-hmm.
For like, is the guy behind him going to really be an improvement, or is he going to be like, this guy has virtually no coaching experience? What are we doing? Like, we might as well just keep the guy that's already in place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just think of that, Bears fans. Just think of that. Yeah. That's all I got to say. Let's move on with the show, man. Let's get some matchups going here. We're already into this a little bit. Which is okay. We are having a good discussion, but let's get this ball rolling here. Let's flip over here because I am going to start the matchups with the New York Jets at the Atlanta Falcons.
The poop bowl.
Let's talk about Zach Wilson here for a second. Okay. Like, just real quick. Last week against the soft Titans pass D, Zach Wilson threw for 297 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not bad. 1 interception, of course, but only took 1 sack. The Falcons D and the Titans, I believe, were doing without Bud Dupree as well. So, take that with a grain of salt. The Falcons D is only giving up 2.8 less yards per game than the Tennessee Titans here. So Wilson is probably going to throw a pick or two for you if you did want to start him here. But if you're a gutsy streamer, it's not a bad matchup against the Falcons for Zach Wilson. There's going to be some names coming up later on here, and one of them is going to be Matt Ryan. But I think I'm going to go Wilson over Matt Ryan this week, especially with the news of Calvin Ridley being out this week. I'm going to go with Zach Wilson here, man. What do you think about that? Zach Wilson, Matt Ryan, how do you feel on that, Tim?
I'm sorry, you're going Wilson over Ryan in this particular matchup?
Yes, sir.
I think it points to the fact that the Falcons are that bad on defense.
Of course.
It's just a vacant cupboard as far as I'm concerned there on defense. I think it's ballsy. Even still. I think I would probably lean name value in a super flex as my low end QB2 and go Matt Ryan.
Maybe you'll change your tune here. Let's move on to Michael Carter here. The Falcons are a little bit better when it comes to defending the run versus the pass, weirdly, but they're still giving up 119.3 rushing yards per game. Michael Carter's playing time has increased every week this season. Not exactly true. He had the same amount of snaps between week 3 and 4, but that's what I wrote, so that's what I'm going to go with. I'm calling myself a liar anyways. Last week he got up to 51%, and by last week I mean also week 3. The problem is that he only got 14 touches and gained 34 yards on those 14 touches.
Mm.
The Titans do have a decent
Oh.
rushing defense, but I'm still not in on Carter just yet, so I'm going to give him the 2 stars, more like a big league, like real big, deep league flex play, 2 stars for him. Let's move on to Corey Davis here. If I think that Zach Wilson's going to have an okay game, then that's got to be Corey Davis right here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he owns the highest snap percentage of all Jets wide receivers. He runs the most routes. And last week, he was only second to Jameis Crowder in targets, and had at least 29 more receiving yards than anyone else on the Jets team. So I'm giving Corey Davis 3.5 stars here. On to the aforementioned Jamison Crowder, 3.5 stars, but only in a full PPR league, folks. Only in a full. He's a target monster. He's just not a yak master. I wish I would have wrote that down. And yak being yards after catch, of course. Let's move on to Matt Ryan here. I do have him down as a 3-star, but that was before Chris told me about Calvin Ridley for sure not playing this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to bump him down to 2.5 stars here. I have a lot of stuff written down, but it's really Matt Ryan and not having his number 1 target. I'm just not in on him, and also not having Russell Gage too. If you're doing some daily dynasty, or daily fantasy stuff, Olamide Zacchaeus, yeah, look that one up. I can almost spell it for you, but I'm not going to.
And I'm not going to remember.
Is a wide receiver name to throw out there, but the Jets do have some decent cornerbacks. They really do. It's really hard for me to get in on Matt Ryan now with Calvin Ridley being out.
Yeah.
Excuse me, you're not starting Mike Davis.
I would like to amend my statement earlier when you were like Zach Wilson over Matt Ryan. That's a really good point. I'm the one who reported it at the beginning of the show. I kind of forgot he was out. Ridley, that is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So with no Calvin Ridley, no Matt Ryan. Cordarrelle Patterson, I'm giving him 3 stars, and maybe it's more like a 3.25, 3.5 stars now. Without Calvin Ridley, I almost call him Johnson. He's not getting a ton of work on the ground, but he's doing all his damage through the air. Patterson helps ZC Works. I got to give a shout out to him. He creamed me last week, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot due to his 3 touchdowns. I'm not calling for another 3 touchdown game from Cordero Patterson this week, but he did have 82 yards in each game and 82 receiving yards in each of the last 2 weeks. So, and that could be a similar usage this week as well. Skipping over Calvin Ridley, we already covered that. One thing to take note of is that Matt Ryan is PFF's 18th best quarterback. Here's some names that are behind that he's ahead of. He's ahead of Sam Darnold, probably due to some turnovers and some ball handling issues. Here's some bigger names, though. Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers. He's ahead of them in PFF's quarterback ratings. Just saying. Kyle Pitts. So far, Pitts has 8 red zone targets and only 2 receptions with 0 touchdowns.
He's not converting him.
Is Kyle Pitts the new is he the new Julio?
The new Julio touchdown Jones.
He's getting the red zone targets. He's just not getting the touchdowns.
Well, they're the last several years. Julio just wasn't getting them because they were like, okay, I'll just stop.
Pitts is averaging only 6.6 yards, fantasy points per game, and he's only the tight end 21 on the league. Chris, if you drafted Kyle Pitts in like the 6th round, are you all in on a cause for concern with him? I think at this point I am. And this is going to be, I think this is going to be the turning point too. Like if it's not this week without Calvin Ridley, then when?
I agree.
I know. And here's the thing. I know he's only like, if Calvin Ridley would have gotten a touchdown, he'd be the tight end 12 so far in the season. If he would have gotten 2, he'd be the tight end 7, but he hasn't. So, and the Jets are giving up 4.4 fantasy points per game to the tight end position.
Ooh.
Granted, the best tight end they faced so far is Noah Fant, but even then, I'm giving Kyle Pitts 3.5 stars, and I'm actually gawking at that rating right now. But without Calvin, I almost called him Calvin Johnson again. Without Calvin Ridley, I'm sticking with that 3.5 there. He's going to probably be the number 1 target this season.
Just this
week for Matt Ryan.
Volume, yeah.
So. Mm-hmm. If he ain't getting it done this week, yeah, I'm definitely way out on Pitts.
Mm-hmm. Well, just where I
What's your first matchup, Chris?
just where I would have drafted Pitts, I would have expected more. That's the point, the overall point for me at least. All right.
I was having a hard a fantasy football calculator was broken this week, or has been actually for a couple weeks, so I was having a hard time finding. I went off of Fantasy Pros ADP,
Mm-hmm.
and it said the 6th, and I was like, that seems a little low, but
Yeah, I feel like
I thought he was going in like the 5th, but whatever. I just went by theirs because it was the only site that I could pull up an ADP on.
There you go. All right, I've got the Patriots at Texans. This shouldn't take too long. Mac Jones is averaging 1 touchdown per game. The Pats' conservative game plan hurts Mac Jones' fantasy value, but he does have a nice 71% completion rate. That doesn't mean he belongs in your fantasy lineups. Only in deep superflex leagues, I'm going to bench him otherwise.
Hey, Chris, real quick. Do you remember when what Tom Brady's first season was? What year it was?
It was 01.
2?
I'm going to go 01.
Okay. Just keep going. Sorry, I'm going to look up Brady stats for his first season.
Damian Harris is the running back 39 on the season in half-point PPR, of course. That's 7.3 fantasy points per game. But he is coming off perhaps his toughest matchup versus... perhaps coming off his toughest matchup. Moving forward, Harris's schedule looks pretty good, actually, the next several weeks, minus the Panthers and Browns in weeks 9 and 10. Besides that, he gets Houston, Dallas, the Jets, the Chargers. Then after the Panthers and Browns I just mentioned, in week 11, he gets Atlanta. And then Tennessee. They even get Indy in week 15 and the Jags in week 17, which is probably the championship round. So I'm looking a little bit ahead there in terms of his value and what he could bring with his soft schedule. The Texans are 5th worst, having given up 548 rushing yards through 4 weeks. It was encouraging to see 61% snap share versus the Bucs last week, but for Harris. But the Pats had no intention of running into that Tampa defensive front, so they abandoned the run early, and Harris ended up with only 4 carries, and Mac Jones threw 40 times. I expect a much more Harris-friendly game script versus the Texans. The Texans are also giving up the 5th most fantasy points to the running back position. I'm going to give Damian Harris 3.5 stars. That's all the Patriots I want to talk about. And all the Texans I want to talk about. Brandon Cooks. Cooks had a rough week last week where Davis Mills threw for only 87 yards versus the league-leading pass defense in terms of passing yards. Yet, Cooks still has a not terrible 5 catches for 47 yards performance. The Pats are tough. The Pats are tough versus the pass, also giving up a 4th best 740 yards through the first 4 weeks. Still, with Cooks averaging just under 10 targets per game, he belongs in the top 36 flex consideration just about every week. So I'm going to give him 3.25 stars. I mean, that's an easy matchup because I don't have any other Patriots to talk about. I'm sorry, Texans to talk about. He used to play for the Patriots.
Well, it's pretty. It's
kind of across the board.
Kind of.
Basically, that was your
kind of what you expect.
Basically, that was your Damian Harris versus Brandon Cooks. There you go.
For sure. Here's the thing about, and I was just kind of like, I'm not saying Mac Jones is the future Tom Brady or anything, but I just wanted to be like, how did Bill Belichick handle Tom Brady in his first year of starting versus
he was
Mac
Mr.
Jones?
Conservative through and through.
It really was. He was averaging about 200 yards per game, about 60, and he averaged 63% of completion percentage, about a touchdown a game, roughly an interception per game, which is kind of where Mac Jones is. Only Mac Jones is at about 270 yards per game so far. So I mean, you give a boost to, that extra 70 yards of this is the modern NFL versus 2001.
Oh,
sure.
Like,
yeah. That's not bad. Like, they're very, very similar. I'm not, like, once again, I'm not calling Mac Jones the next Tom Brady. I'm just saying how this the exact same head coach
franchise is
handled
managing him. Yeah,
a very similar quarterback.
Yes, Brady was not a good fantasy quarterback in the beginning of his career. In fact, for a few years, and then of course, Randy Moss and all that happened.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I'm just giving context to what Mac Jones is doing versus what Tom Brady was doing in his first. Yada, 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 yada. Blah, 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 blah. Just doing some on-air thinking. Here we go. Detroit Lions at Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota may be allowing 19.4 fantasy points per game. That doesn't make Goff startable. He's averaging only 18.8 fantasy points per game, 275 yards per game, right around Mac Jones, and 1 3/4 touchdowns per game. So it's really not that great. Keep him out of your starting lineup. I'm giving him 1.5 stars this week. He's getting that because he is the quarterback 16 so far and has a softer matchup. Maybe that should be more like a 2.5 stars, I guess. I just lost Jimmy Garoppolo in my 2 quarterback league. Maybe
Sure.
I need to start Jared Goff instead. Deandre Swift, assuming he plays, he has a groin injury. I believe Chris covered that at the top, and if he didn't, he has a groin injury and he's questionable at the moment. Assuming he plays 3 3/4 stars. Surprisingly, DeAndre Swift is the RB9 so far this season. Despite his top 10 running back status, Swift hasn't been super efficient on the ground. He's averaging just 3.4 yards per carry, but he is averaging almost 6 receptions per game and 8.7 yards per reception. I'm guessing that the Lions will continue to throw the ball this week, being behind because their secondary, their entire defense is not very good. So that means that Swift once again will be getting that receiving work, like I already said. Jamal Williams, I am giving 2.75 stars. He's averaging 11.6 fantasy points per game and is the RB20 so far this season. Both of those aren't too bad for an RB. You are getting in like the 8th, 9th, 10th round. Once again, having problems finding ADP. Hey, Chris, score one for us. Calling Jamal Williams.
There you go.
Sorry, I got a couple of props for us this season because I was in kind of a bad spot last week or this past week mentally. So I needed a little pick me up.
Yeah.
I needed a little pat on the back for Josh and Chris this week. My problem with Jamal Williams is snap percentage. Yeah. On average, he's in on 38.35% of the Lions snaps. Efficient, yes, but I'm not sure I want to bank on that low level of usage. So like just above a third of the time he's out there. And which is weird because, everyone's like, oh, he's going to be the receiving back and blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about Khalif Raymond here. And we have to because he has been in on 72.5% of the team snaps, which is leading all wide receivers. He was the wide receiver 8 last week in all of fantasy for week 5, which made him a great DFS play. But should you count him on this week? He is averaging 8 targets the past 2 weeks. That's not bad. Minnesota is giving out 27.2 fantasy points per game to wide receivers, which is 11th most. I'm just not going to recommend it because I just want I want to see it one more time. But if you got big old cojones, I'll give him 2 stars. Assuming that Hawkinson does play, Chris said it was truly questionable. Hawkinson and Swift are tied for the most targets with and all the Detroit pass catchers with 31 targets so far this season. Even though the Vikings are only allowing 6.3 points per game to the tight end position, they like the Jets, haven't really faced a good tight end. So and Hawk is a tight end 5 so far this season. Which is another good call by Chris and I right there. See the positive affirmation there. I'm going to give 4 stars to Hawkinson. On to Kirk Cousins. I admit I was wrong last week about Cousins, but I'm going to go back to the well again this week because
I have no problem with it.
It's the Lions.
Yeah,
the
for sure,
only reason that Kirk Cousins isn't going to have a good game this week is because of 2 things: either injury, and that's an early injury, or Dalvin Cook just rolls over the Lions, and it just becomes a complete Dalvin Cook game.
And he doesn't have to throw, yeah. No, I'm right back on the horse too. Good call.
I'm giving 4 stars to Cousins for that. The Dalvin Cook thing comes with a bit of a caveat. You started Dalvin Cook last week because he was playing, and you don't sit an elite level player even if he's banged up. Cook was in on only 49% of the team's offensive snaps. That is low compared to his 71 plus snap percentage pre-injury. I think Dalvin Cook is another week removed, and it sounds like he came out of last week no worse than we're going in. Until we hear otherwise, I'm moving forward with Dalvin Cook getting closer to that 71%. So I'm also giving him 4 stars in a great matchup. The Lions are 9th worst, allowing And as far as rushing yards per game, I'm giving Justin Jefferson 4.5 stars and Adam Thielen 4.25 stars, even though it was a
Nice.
dud week for Thielen last week. Both him and Jefferson can thrive versus Lions' anemic secondary. And
For
I
sure.
just wanted to keep that matchup short there. Tyler Conklin, I'm not in on, but if you wanted to pick him up and stash him to see what he did, fine, whatever. And that's that matchup there, Chris. What's your next one?
Well done. I've got Eagles at Panthers. Jalen Hurts threw for 387 yards, 2 scores, 47 rushing yards, and 28.2 fantasy points versus the Chiefs, and is the QB3 on the season. But the Chiefs are not a good defense, and neither are the other 3 teams they've played.
I was just going to say the Chiefs are the second worst as far as like yards per game given up through the air.
Yeah. Although Dallas has proven to be neither of the other 3 teams that they have played, although Dallas has proven to be opportunistic. I don't think this Carolina team has been too badly affected by the loss of J.C. Horn, the cornerback, or CMC on the offensive side of the ball.
You mean the team that just traded for Stephon Gilmore?
Yeah. Let me continue. They really like C.J. Henderson, the cornerback they immediately traded for, and are bringing in Stephon Gilmore also. I think week 6, week 7. I don't know what it is when he's going to come off the pup.
Week 7, they were saying?
Yeah.
Because Gilmore hasn't played yet so far this season.
Exactly. I am really impressed by Matt Rule and the work he's done. Hurts hasn't faced a test like this yet, and the QB we don't think is very good in real life, but keeps producing fantasy gold, doesn't play like a top 12 quarterback this week. I'm going to give him 2 stars as a low-end QB2 in Superflex. Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. Sanders is averaging 9.25 carries per game. 64.25% snap share, 35.5 for Gainwell. Yet Gainwell is the RB27 and Sanders is the RB33. Due in large part to Gainwell stealing the passing work. That's about 4.25 targets per game. Honestly, their floor scares me in a good matchup. I'm benching both versus this Panthers defense. That's the 3rd best in terms of fantasy points given up to the running backs and 10th best in rushing yards given up. Devonta Smith, receiver. Panthers are second only to Buffalo in terms of passing yards given up. That's 2nd best. Devonta Smith has seen an average of 7.75 targets per game, but with only a 58% catch rate, I am benching the Philly wide receivers. On to the tight ends, because this is worth talking about. We have to talk about them because one of them will be fantasy relevant inevitably each week, it seems like a top 12 guy. In fact, I think both are in that category this week. I don't think Jalen Hurts can make all the throws in the NFL. I think he struggles outside the hashes, and Devonta Smith's numbers show as much. The Eagles use both their tight ends, and while it's frustrating to know that Ertz is hurting Goddard's ceiling, they are both fantasy viable this week and potentially moving forward. The Panthers just gave up a combined 7 catches for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns to the Dallas tight ends, and are middle of the road versus fantasy tight ends. That's 16th. Ertz has been the tight end 5 over the past 2 weeks, averaging 7.5 targets and scoring once. Meanwhile, Goddard is the tight end 7 overall and often gets red zone targets. I think Hurts and the Eagles are in comeback mode early, and the 2 tight ends are the beneficiary. That's 4.25 stars for Goddard and 3.75 stars for Ertz. On to the Panthers. Darnold has been on fire, and I am loving it. Of course, all the talk is about his league-leading 5 quarterback rushing touchdowns, but also his leadership. DJ Moore is balling out. More on him later. I believe this team has a great staff around Darnold, along with great players, and he is leaving the ghosts for Halloween. He's averaging just under 70% completion percentages. He has hit over 300 yards the last 3 weeks, and is the QB5 on the season. With CMC trending in, I like Darnold as a top 12 QB again this week, but just barely. The Eagles are awful versus run. They are giving up the 6th most fantasy points to the running back position and the 2nd most rushing yards in the league at 150.25 per contest. More on the running backs in a moment, but I think the Panthers come in with a run-heavy game plan involving both CMC and Hubbard, but Darnold gets enough to score a couple times and remain a QB1 for the week, albeit a low-end one, 3.5 stars. On to the running backs for Carolina. As I mentioned earlier, McCaffrey is trending in after logging 2 limited sessions on Wednesday and Thursday, and a quote that he said he feels pretty good about it. Hubbard looked fine in his stead, but didn't receive much of the receiving work. He caught both his targets for 14 yards. In fact, I saw them line DJ Moore up a couple times in the backfield to catch a pass. Still, he is averaging 4.6 yards per carry, looks explosive, and could see more work here as CMC eases back in. But more importantly, I think both backs can have success versus this awful Eagles run defense. If CMC goes, 5 stars for him, 3 for Hubbard. If CMC doesn't go, 4.5 stars for Hubbard. DJ Moore. Okay. DJ Moore is the apple of Darnold's eye and has been the primary beneficiary of Darnold's improved play, averaging 10.75 targets per game and 0.75 touchdowns per game. He is the wide receiver 4 on the season. While the Eagles appear on paper to be stout versus wide receivers, 8th best in terms of fantasy points surrendered to the position and 7th best in terms of passing yards, they just got roasted by Tyreek Hill. Still, I see a run-heavy game plan here, and that hurts DJ's ceiling a little, but he and Darnold are making beautiful music together, and they get enough done through the air, and DJ gets 3.75 stars. Robbie Anderson did see 11 targets last week, but only 11 all season prior to that in the first 3 weeks. The Panthers were also in comeback mode, so I'm going to bench the rest of the Panthers' passing options due to a run-heavy attack and a low floor of Robbie Anderson and Terrace Marshall and whoever's playing tight end now, the rookie, I believe. And that is your Eagles at Panthers.
Good questions.
Mm-hmm.
Did you mention the Darnold and Ghost thing because it's Halloween or because his whole I'm seeing ghosts out here comment?
Yes.
Okay. And secondly, are you inferring that Sam Darnold and DJ Moore are making sweet, sweet love down by a fire?
I said music. I said music, not love. They're making beautiful music together.
Yeah. And so are you inferring that they're making sweet, sweet love down by a fire?
Nope. Football music.
Okay. I just wanted some clarification.
No reproduction involved.
It would have been better if you said yes. Let's move along to the New Orleans Saints at the Washington football team. I really wish we would have kept calling them the potato skins, but that somehow faded, and that's okay. Sometimes things just fade out of our cultural dictionary. Let's start with Jameis Winston, of course, because he's the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints at the moment. I say for the moment. Last week against the Giants, Winston topped 200 passing yards for the first time since his last game with the Bucs in 2019. The football team is the 4th worst against the pass, allowing 229 flat yards per game through the air. I know I shouldn't be giving... I know I shouldn't, but I'm giving Jameis a hesitant 2.5 stars, and it maybe needs to be closer to like 3.
Okay.
You know what? 3 stars. 3 stars. Alvin Kamara, 4.5 stars. Nice. I know that Kamara has yet to put up that explosive game, whatever. But why not against Washington? They've only allowed 1 touchdown on the ground, but 5 touchdowns through the air to opposing running backs. While the receiving work may be slightly limited with Jameis, it's still under Jameis still being under Sean Payton's thumb. I like Kamara to get a tutty or 2 this week, with making him a great start. Other than him, you're not starting any of the other Saints pass catchers. Chris, back to the board here. Who's winning that Cole Kmet versus Adam Troutman bet? I think it's still me.
Nobody.
Yeah, no one's losing. No one's winning that bet. On to Tyler Heineke. This isn't the greatest matchup for any of the Washington footballer team.
Footballer. Yeah,
anyways. Ballistics?
Ball players?
I got nothing here. The Saints are giving up just 14.8 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Surprisingly, the lead's 7th worst, 283.3 yards per game through the air. That would be the yards per game being the 7th worst. But The Saints are giving up a great touchdown to interception ratio of 5-7. That would be 5 touchdowns to 7 interceptions thrown. With Terry McLaurin getting the Marshawn Lattimore treatment, it could easily be a rocky day for Heineken or whatever his name is. Antonio Gibson, I'm giving him 2 stars so far this season. Sorry, pause. So far this season, Gibson is averaging just 59.5% of the offensive snaps for the football team. He's getting you 12.5 fantasy points per game. That's not bad, but it's a rough matchup for Gibson here. The Saints defense in general is pretty darn good.
Mhm.
So the Saints are giving up just 14.3 fantasy points per game and only 98.5 scrimmage yards to opposing running backs, and that's surprisingly for a converted wide receiver, they are still trusting J.D. McKissick to catch the ball, not Antonio Gibson. Weird. Maybe that's why they converted him from wide receiver. He wasn't a good receiver. Hard to say. Terry McLaurin, 3 stars. As mentioned before, McLaurin is destined to see Marshawn Lattimore in this game. It's going to be the battle of PFF's 9th best corner versus their 5th best wide receiver. It should be an interesting matchup. So if you have the Sunday ticket, maybe you should tune in for that. If I did, and they could, you could just stream it. I would certainly do so, but I can't, so I won't. But otherwise, I'm giving McLaurin 3 stars. Logan Thomas, he's just tight end dart throw territory like everyone else. He has the 11th highest snap percentage of all tight ends, which is actually down from 2 weeks ago where he was number 1.
Mm-hmm.
But he's tight end dependent like just about every other tight end in fantasy football, so I'm going to give him 2 3/4 stars. And that's that matchup. Chris, what's your next one?
My next matchup is sorry.
Before you start that, I'm sorry, Curtis Samuel here. Wait and see.
Oh, as far as if he goes?
No, he's gonna go. It's just I'm not gonna start him against the Saints.
Gotcha. All right, I've got Titans at Jaguars. Yep, I did that.
Jaguars.
Tannehill has performed better the last 2 weeks for fantasy after a bad start. Still, at this point, he is a matchup-based streamer and not the top 12 guy I and others had hoped for. Still, you play matchup-based quarterbacks in good matchups, and that's exactly what this is. The Jags
are giving amazing matchup.
Yeah, the Jags are giving up the 10th most fantasy points to the quarterback position on the year and the 3rd most passing yards in the NFL. Tannehill has thrown 2+ touchdowns in every meeting versus the Jags since he came over to the Titans, and with A.J. Brown trending in, I like Tannehill as a streamer this week. 4 stars for my buddy. Derrick Henry, the RB1 on the season. I mean, he's no Sam Darnold, but is tied for first amongst running backs with 4 rushing scores. While I do think Jacksonville is more susceptible to the pass, Henry is always a part of the game plan. That's why he averages a league-leading 28.25 carries per game. I can't believe they're doing that to one man.
I can't believe he's still healthy.
Exactly. I'm still holding. I will die on this hill with you, Josh. But this week, 4.25 stars.
Watch it be week 18 at the very last play of the game. There.
Literally,
like, injured, but called it.
Literally, both his ACLs like shoot out his ass or something. Sorry, that was graphic, folks. Onward to the passing options.
I don't know if that's physically possible, but let's just go with it.
I made it up. On to the pass catchers for the Titans. A.J. Brown, along with Tannehill, have torched the Jags in the past, as I mentioned a moment ago, with A.J. Brown scoring in each game last year and racking up a total of 247 receiving yards. As I mentioned, A.J. Brown is trending in after logging 2 full sessions. However, Julio has not practiced all week. With Julio's likely absence and the bad Jags pass defense, Brown has a big day. 4.5 stars. I'm obviously Julio. I'm trending towards out, so I have nothing on him. I'm benching him, as I am Anthony Ferkster, the practically non-existent tight end.
Yeah, what a disappointment for Ferkster this season.
Well, I think you can kind of pin that to Tannehill's struggles too. Like we expected more efficiency.
I know, but
we didn't necessarily expect a lot of volume, but we expected a similar.
I think it's more about their offensive line, and he's having to come in and block more than he had in years past.
For whatever reason, Tannehill is less efficient than he was last year. Let me put it that way. The Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence. We finally saw a glimmer of hope from Lawrence last week as he posted a 70.8% completion percent with no picks and ran in a score. Tennessee is downright bad versus the pass, but this Jacksonville team is losing faith and trust in their leader, Urban Meyer, and this is a train wreck of a situation. Make no mistake, folks. Meyer probably won't make it through the season. It's just off-field stuff. I'm not even going to get into it. But we're talking about.
Let's not.
We're talking about this week. I didn't leave a rating for Lawrence. I'm definitely going to put him in the quarterback 2 conversation in Superflex.
Here's a question for you, Chris, real quick.
Two
Trevor
stars.
Lawrence or Zach Wilson this week? Zach Wilson gets the Falcons. Trevor Lawrence gets
Trevor Lawrence. Yep.
I like it. I
mean, I was just about to say 2 stars for Lawrence, but I don't recall what you gave for Wilson. Forgive me, but it's more of a
something.
It's more of a QB2 super flex, but yeah, I'm taking Lawrence over Zach Wilson for sure.
3.25 stars.
Ooh, okay. Well, that makes my stars worth less.
Yeah, we're all over the map on that one.
Yeah, I think it's because there's only really like 12 quarterbacks that you play each week in most situations.
One of these days we're going to have to get together and duke it out like physically, and you're going to be like, I think it's going to be 3 stars, and I'm like, I say it's 2.
I know the fix. I know the fix. We go from stars to jock straps. Problem solved. James
jockstrap, Chris.
Speaking of jock straps, James Robinson
he's not a jockstrap.
With Carlos Hyde as a healthy scratch, Robinson took 95% of the snaps and logged a season high in carries. He has 3 touchdowns over the last 2 games and is averaging 4.25 targets per game. He is the RB9.
He's back, baby.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. The RB9 on the season. Robinson goes up against a Titans D seemingly more vulnerable to the pass, but with Robinson's pass game involvement and a very beatable Titans defense, generally speaking, and probably some garbage time, Robinson keeps it rolling with a solid performance. I'm going to give him 4 stars in the week. Friendly reminder, DJ chart. Oh, I've got it here in the paragraph. My apologies. Leviskus Chanault. Speaking of benefiting from another player's absence, Chanault took advantage somewhat of Chark's absence on the IR and logged his best yardage total game with 99 yards on 6 catches, giving him a nice 16.5 average. That doesn't make sense. But much of that was underneath stuff after a 16.5 yard per catch. But much of that was underneath stuff. Yeah, exactly. But much of that was underneath stuff after the catch, as is evidenced by his 4.3 yards DOT, which is depth of target. But the Titans are downright awful versus the pass. I think there's a concerted effort to get Lawrence in the pass game going, and Chanault sees double-digit targets and scores for the first time this season. 4 stars for Mr. Leviskus Chanault. That's all the pass catchers for Jacksonville.
Not Marvin Jones?
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Let's give him a flex grade.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry. He's doing well in targets. I glossed over him. My apologies. I don't know where I went with that. I think I was watching Chanault today for this purpose, and I must have glossed over Marvin Jones. My apologies.
It's all good.
That was the matchup. What you got next?
So now we got the Miami Dolphins at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's start with Jacoby Brissett here. I'm giving him 2 stars this week. If this were a bye week with a lot of, if there were one of those bye weeks with a lot of teams on byes, I'd be more in on Brissett, but it's not, so I'm not. So hit a good week 3 game against the Las Vegas Raiders, but turned around and scored only 14.8 fantasy points against my stupid Colts last week.
Stupid Colts.
Who are going into last week as a bottom 10 as far as points per game. That would be the Colts defense as far as bottom 10 with points allowed per game to opposing quarterbacks. The Bucs corners are beatable, but with Jacoby Brissett averaging 4.9 yards per attempt, I'm not exactly thrilled for him here. And to be in my lineup or yours, so kind of just stay away from Brissett. More of a, throw him into that category of, I just had Jimmy Garoppolo go down and I need a quarterback to plug this week, Jacoby Brissett sort of thing. You're not starting any Miami Dolphins running backs. Malcolm Brown last week actually outsnapped Myles Gaskin, and the Bucs are allowing just 12 point. It's true. I'm not lying, man.
I'm so glad I didn't end up with him this year.
The Bucs are allowing just 12 points per game to running backs. That is total running backs. That is not just per running back on each team. It is like, Myles Gaskin and and Malcolm Brown. No, it's 12 points total. It's the Bucks run defense is good. Jalen Waddle, on the other hand, I'm going to give him 3 3/4 stars. If Waddle had a different quarterback at the helm, this would be a great matchup for him. The Bucks have struggled this year to stop wide receivers. 3 3/4 stars for Waddle. Mike Gesicki, the Bucks are allowing 7 receptions per game, 60 yards, and 3/4 of a touchdown per game to opposing tight ends. Fire up your Gesickis, folks. I'm in on him this week.
Nice.
He is
Okay.
I think he's number 2 in targets as far as when Jacoby Brissett took over. Granted, these targets are not deep, and Gesicki's not exactly a yak master, but 3 3/4 stars for him. I think you can start Gesicki with some confidence this week. On to stupid Tom Brady. I'm giving him -5 stars because he's Tom Brady, and I just don't like Tom Brady at all from his days being in New England. For reals, though, folks, for reals, the Dolphins are allowing 17.8 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Historically, the Dolphins have fared rather well for Brady, but that is when he was in New England. He's in Tampa Bay now. So I don't want to say it, Chris. Can you just say the
5 stars?
4 stars?
Oh, okay. Okay, 4. Okay, yeah, that doesn't sting too bad.
Can you just say that for me real quick? Can you just say
4
Josh
star.
is giving
4 stars for Thomas Joshua Brady. I just made that middle name up. I don't know what his middle name is.
I can't even say it. Let's move on to Leonard Fournette. PFF gives the Bucks offensive line a 24% advantage over the Dolphins defensive front, which when it comes to run blocking, that's great. Rojo's only getting 6 touches per game. He's barely even a factor. And the reports are that the stash, Giovanni Bernard, could be ready to go in week 5.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But how much he will play, or even if he is going to play, is TBD. He didn't. Obviously, if you don't remember, he didn't play last week. Even if the stash comes back, he has not recorded a single carry for the Bucks so far. I had to go to 4 different sources to vet this because I didn't.
Not a single
didn't
carry.
Believe it.
Oh my god!
Not a single carry. He's done it all through the air. If the Bucks are going to have the lead, which I think they're going to, I think they're going to have a potential to have that lead. Here comes them rolling out Lenny, and he's going to grind out the last bit of the game. Here's the problem: 9.6 fantasy points for Fournette. So I'm going to give him 3 1/4 stars this week. It's a decent matchup. The Giovanni, the stash Bernard coming back kind of makes me hesitate a little bit. But still, 3 1/4 stars for Lenny. He's definitely an every week starter in my dynasty squad, but that's only because my 3-1 dynasty squad, mind you. I'm gonna talk all the trash. I'm just gonna get housed this week.
Just
I know
revel in it. Revel in it.
I'm going to get housed. It's
fine.
Mike Evans. Let's move on to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown here, the wide receivers for the Bucks. Stupid Tom Brady is doing it again. Mike Evans is the wide receiver 18, while Godwin is the wide receiver 14. Evans is probably going to get the Xavier Howard treatment, and which is, if you don't know, is the Dolphins' best corner. So I'll give Mike Evans 3.5 stars, and I'm going to give Godwin 4 stars. Who should have been the best? Who should have the best defensive matchup out of the 3 Bucks wide receivers? So 4 stars for Godwin. I'm giving Antonio Brown 3 1/4 stars, or 3.25 stars. Brown is probably the most polarizing out of the bunch. In week 2, he goes for 1 out of 3. He gets 1 catch out of 3 targets for 17 yards, and then comes back from the COVID list last week and racks up 11 targets for 7 receptions and 63 yards. You should definitely consider Antonio Brown for your flex spot. Like, for reals, he's there, but like I said, he's going to be a little polarizing. He could definitely give you that one catch for 17 yards, or the 7 for 63, and even like throw a touchdown in there, or even 2. Like, it's just kind of all over the map with Antonio Brown, and you probably got him in about the 10th round too. So you don't necessarily have to bank on him, but you definitely can this week. It's not the greatest matchup, but it's not bad either. Cameron Brate here, 2-star for the tight end dart throw. Brate and Howard actually were both in on exactly 65% of the Bucs snaps last week versus the Patriots. But Brate got 6 targets versus OJ Howard's 1 target, and at least 2 of those 6 targets were in the were in the end zone. I watched part of that game, so at least 2 of those targets were in the end zone. So there you go. I mean, like I said, tight end dart throw, Cameron Brate. What's your next matchup, Chris?
My next matchup is up here.
The Green Bay Packers at the Cincinnati Browns. Bengals.
You love to do that. It's something about Ohio. Packers.
I don't know what it is. At least I didn't say the Buckeyes.
Packers at Bengals. Correct, sir. Aaron Rodgers.
I think you mean the Buckeyes.
Right, there you go. The Bengals.
It's all bees.
There you go. The Bengals are actually pretty good defense versus the pass. They're giving up the 7th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, and only 4 passing touchdowns is good enough for 5th best in the NFL. They're decent versus the run, too. More on that in a second. Rodgers is only the quarterback 18 on the season, thanks in large part to the dud they put up against New Orleans in Week 1 and pedestrian yardage totals since then. He is averaging a mere 224.25 passing yards per game. The game is in Cincinnati, and I think the Bengals come out and play inspired football, coming off a huge comeback win versus the Jags last week. At 3-1, the Bengals give the Packers all they can handle, thereby forcing Rodgers and the Packers to throw a bit more this week. 3.75 stars for Rodgers as a low-end quarterback 1 this week. Aaron Jones, as I mentioned, since he is no joke on D, they're PFF's 7th-ranked run defense. They're 9th best with 93.5 rushing yards surrendered per game and the 10th fewest fantasy points given up to the running back position. As I mentioned, I expect a pass-heavy day from the Packers. Jones is a receiving dynamo and is 2nd among running backs with 3 receiving touchdowns, behind Cordell Patterson with 4. So, for whatever that's worth.
Which came with last week. So,
yeah.
Come on, folks.
And it probably, I didn't watch the game, but it probably came when he was literally lined up at receiver, right? You know, like it could have. I don't know. Because he's played a bit of both lately. Anyway, this same Bengals defense surrendered that huge 19-target, 14-catch, 102 receiving yard day to Najee Harris in Week 3. I really like Jones this week, and particularly through the air. I'm giving him 5 stars. Devonte Adams. Obviously, I expect a lot of throwing by Green Bay. I expect Adams to be a big part in that. 4.5 stars. Moving on. Randall Cobb, led the team in receiving yards with a very nice 69 yards last week and 2 scores.
Nice.
With Marquez Valdez-Scantling on the IR, and the Steelers hell-bent on slowing down Devontae. That's kind of how it worked out. Before that, Randall Cobb had next to nothing. I'm just not counting on these Green Bay passing options.
Yeah, as you shouldn't.
Robert Tonyan, more the same with him. He was 2nd on the team with 7 targets last week, but it turns into only 8. But it turns into only 8 yards. Before that, he was averaging 2.67 targets per game. These ancillary Green Bay passing options are too unpredictable at this time. I'm going to bench them all. On to the Bengals. Joe Burrow. As I mentioned earlier, I expect the Bengals to play Joe Burrow. As I mentioned earlier, I expect the Bengals to play inspired at home and give the Packers a run for their money. On one hand, the Packers are tied for 4th with a whopping 11 passing touchdowns given up, but 5 of those came in that horrible Week 1 game they put up versus Jameis and the Saints. Not saying it doesn't count. I'm just saying Jameis and the Saints have shown us who they are since then, and the Packers have played much better. They're just a different team than that Week 1 team right now. But they haven't played anyone worth a damn, really. Jameis, as I mentioned, Goff, Jimmy G, and the corpse of Big Ben.
Who are you talking about?
Joe Burrow going up against the Packers passing defense.
Who?
The corpse of Big Ben. Plus, Jair.
I think you were talking about Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. Yes, I'm talking about Joe Burrow. Plus, Jair Alexander is expected to miss the game. And remember, Zadarius Smith, their pass rusher.
What?
Yeah, Jair Alexander is expected to miss. And remember, Zadarius Smith is on the IR following back surgery, and they just lost another outside linebacker / pass rusher in Chauncey Rivers, the guy who replaces Darius. They are bringing in Jalen Smith.
Kevin King is terrible.
They are bringing in Jalen Smith, the linebacker.
What is your quick side note? What is your take on that?
I don't know. I don't know if they want him to rush the passer because we're talking about outside linebackers and pass rush here.
Your take as a former Cowboys fan.
I had an interesting take that's a little pro Cowboys in that he's the fourth linebacker on the team, and it says something if folks are clamoring to pick him up. Meaning he's still talented.
Think the Cowboys just wanted too much in the trade,
money.
So they're just like, screw it.
It was money. It was just he was 7.5. I think was the number thrown out as a roster bonus. Ooh. And just like I said, he's third or fourth on the depth chart. Obviously, Parsons is the real deal. Right. I think it speaks.
That's cool. Feel free to cut all that out if you want. I just wanted your quick take on it.
Sounds good. Like I said, they cut another outside linebacker pass. I'm sorry, they lost another outside linebacker pass rusher, Chauncey Rivers, the guy who replaces Darius Smith. They are bringing in Jalen Smith from the Cowboys. I don't think he's a pass rushing answer. I think he's more of an inside linebacker kind of guy.
That's what I thought.
So I don't think this is going to matter in this week. Let's put it that way. So I think they're tested versus this confident Bengals squad, and their leader Burrow has time to throw on his way to a big day. 4.5 stars. Joe Mixon is week to week. He did not practice Wednesday or Thursday with an ankle. I don't think
he's going to play this week, man.
I didn't mention this at the top of the show, did I?
No.
I must have this habit of including it in the matchup and not in the top of the show. My apologies. Cool. But I got it in here. He did not practice Wednesday, Thursday with an low-grade ankle sprain. I think the Mixon injury only strengthens my theory of a pass-heavy approach for the Bengals because I don't think he plays. And I think I don't think Mixon plays and backups are underwhelming. Just today, the Bengals offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, said the team will likely use a committee approach if Mixon is out. Honestly, I'm just hoping my guy Chris Evans gets in there and
Captain America.
Yeah, on passing downs, and we can see what he can do in the hurry up and whatnot. But yeah, I'm benching all the running backs, assuming Mixon does not go. Tiggins, woo! Our guy is back. Well, I'm pretty sure
Tiggins is back.
Yeah, he has practiced.
I need to change my lineup. I think he's on the IR still.
He has practiced in full twice now. Now again, to my point, the Bengals lose Mixon and gain Tiggins. I think it speaks again to the pass-heavy game plan.
Sort of a wash.
Well, I think it just means they're going to throw more. Tiggins has been more reliable and is a touchdown magnet. After 2 weeks off at home, Tiggins plays well and probably scores. I'm going to give him 4 stars. Jamar Chase has shined in Tiggins' absence and is the wide receiver 8 on the season and is tied for second with 4 receiving touchdowns on the season. Both Chase and Tiggins take advantage of the injured Packers defense. 5 stars for Jamar Chase. Tyler Boyd filled in great and is fine for a deep 3 wide receiver league or something like that. 2 stars and no tight end of consequence for Cincinnati. That is my matchup, sir. On to you.
Okay, I was going to ask you something, and you kind of answered my question anyway, so let's keep rolling with my matchup of the Denver Broncos versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. How is Teddy Bridgewater going to play this week? I don't think you covered that at the top of the show.
Oh, right. I don't know. I'll look that up while you're doing that.
I'm gonna start here with this, and if Teddy doesn't play, I'm gonna give you time to look it up. So I'm gonna start on the Pittsburgh side of the ball. I normally like to go away team first, but I'm gonna go with Big Ben. I'm gonna give him 1 star. I'm gonna stop calling him Big Ben because named men don't deserve a name if they don't deserve it, and he has not earned his name the past 2-3 seasons, really. I watched about half of it. I half watched this Packers-Steelers game last week, and Ben looked cooked. Yep. Just stick a fork in it, Ben. Yep. You're done, dude. You're done. And this is about the worst match. The Denver Broncos defense is straight legit, folks. It really is.
It is.
They haven't played anyone super elite, but at the same time, they've looked so good playing good, okay to good to bad teams that it's just okay, bring it on, Bucks or Chiefs or whoever, Right. When the Broncos do play the Chiefs here in probably a couple of weeks, it's going to be an interesting matchup to see what Patrick Mahomes can do against this.
Chiefs need wins too, man. That's not.
Yeah, it's going to be
1-2.
interesting to see what Mahomes and the Chiefs can do against this defense. So 1 star for Ben. He's been playing absolutely terrible. Najee Harris, I'm giving him 3 stars. He's averaging 15.3 points per game. 3 out of the 4 teams he's gone up against have allowed at least 15 points per game to the running back position. So
Nice.
he's been playing some softer defenses. The one team that's better than all that is Buffalo, who has allowed only 10.2 points per game. And that's in a game where Harris struggled. So I think he's going to struggle against what is quietly the best defense in the NFL so far. Seriously, folks. Statistically, Denver is the best defense. Like top to bottom, left to right. Deontay Johnson, 3 stars for him. A fun fact for you, Chris. Fun fact. Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris have the exact same target percentage at 20.35 targets per percentage of Ben Roethlisberger targets.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Najee did
The exact
have
same.
huge, 19
So they
target?
combined for 40.7 of Ben Roethlisberger's targets.
Yeah.
Almost half.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so Juju, I'm gonna give him 2 stars. It's a difficult matchup for all the Pittsburgh players. Juju, blah 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 blah. Yeah, it's 2 stars for Juju. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep rolling. What is the update on Teddy Bridgewater?
The update on Teddy Bridgewater reads: Teddy Bridgewater is expected to return to practice Thursday in a limited capacity. That was 6 hours ago by the Denver Broncos checkmark Twitter, etc.
Okay, so here's my take, and it's sounding pretty questionable. We can revisit this matchup on the Sunday stream too, which is let's do a quick plug for that Sunday stream. Is where Chris and I get together. We have some coffee. Sometimes it becomes a little Irish. That coffee, that is, and we do the Monday night matchup, and we also do last minute injury updates and everything. So let's put this Denver Pittsburgh game, at least the Denver side of it, into that too, because if Teddy doesn't play, I kind of don't want to start any of the Broncos receivers outside of Cortland Sutton being a flex and maybe a low end flex. And Fant is kind of in the tight end dart throw category already. So that's kind of about it. That's all I really want to start if it's not going to be Teddy. I don't see that. I don't see Devonta Williams or Melvin Gordon really stepping up and kind of taking charge if it's
like carrying the team and just being a real run heavy.
Yeah, and you could argue that it's like, oh, they're going to run the ball more because just to kind of game manage with Drew Lock at the helm. But
I'm not worried about
run defense is pretty good too. So I kind of don't want to. I kind of want to stay away from it. You know, what's your next matchup, Chris? Because that one is buttoned up for the moment. Stay tuned for Sunday. Seriously, folks, we start streaming at 10 a.m. Central. I almost said Eastern. We don't live in the East.
We do not.
It is 10 a.m. Central Time. You know where you live. You can do the math. We do know where you live, but we're not telling you that we know that, even though I just did. What's your next matchup, Chris? Quick, before they realize that I just said that.
Bears at Raiders. I can edit that right out. It's been nice seeing Fields allowed to throw deep, but he is not being allowed to rush the ball. And in fantasy, that's kind of what we care about. The Raiders seem middle of the road statistically in terms of passing yards and fantasy points to the quarterback position. PFF has them as their number 1 rated pass rush with guys like Max Crosby, Carl Nassib, and Yannick Ngakoue. Fields belongs on your bench, but is fine for a low-end QB2 in Superflex. I'm going to give him 2 stars this week. Damian Williams in place of Montgomery. Raiders are tied for 3rd worst, having given up 6 rushing touchdowns on the season. They have also given up 529 rushing yards, bad enough for 10th worst. Damian Williams has shown with the Chiefs in the past that he can excel in a good offense. Now, the players clearly aren't on that level, but Williams did come in immediately and played well with 8 rushes, 55 yards, and a score last week. I like Williams this week, 4 stars. Allen Robinson. I mean, I can give some stats about Robinson, but flat out, he's probably droppable in most leagues, right? I mean,
you're not dropping Allen Robinson.
I mean, don't drop him. Try and get something. Maybe he hits here in a couple weeks. It's sell high.
I think it's a hold and sell Don't sell low, but sell him.
As soon as you get a good opportunity to sell him.
Yeah, or if you can sell him on name value, I guess.
Well, how about this? Darnell Mooney or Allen Robinson rest of season?
At the moment,
yeah,
it's Mooney, dude.
I know.
It really is.
I mean, Darnell Mooney is a wide receiver 57, and that's coming off a game with a 64-yard bomb for a touchdown. So it's like, again, that obviously counts, and I like what I'm seeing deep from Fields, but just I'm benching him. I'm just benching the Chicago passing game.
And here's the thing about Justin Fields is that even if they do allow him to rush, and this is a Raiders defense that has faced Lamar Jackson, who is probably the premier rushing quarterback.
Yeah, my opinion changes immediately.
Roughly 40 rushing yards per game, and about and less than 6 attempts per game. So. Sorry, that was on the fly math, but that's pretty accurate there.
So just generally, I'm not starting any of the Chicago passing game. There, I said it.
What about Cole Kmet? Josh's preseason? No, I know, man. I know. Keep rolling.
On to the Raiders. Carr's MVP like season took a hit Monday night versus the Chargers. He didn't crest 200 yards and threw a pick. Darren Waller had that awful unsportsmanlike taunting penalty, which wasn't. So there was that too.
I missed that one, but okay.
Josh Jacobs is back at practice, so I expect him to be back at it. Bears are reasonable versus the run, so I'll give him 3 stars and definitely keep him in the top 36 flex conversation. Obviously, with Jacobs trending in, Drake is out of the conversation. And really, so are the passing options except for Hunter Renfrow. Really like him, especially in a full PPR. He's got a great floor every week. It's only a handful of targets, like 5, 6, or 7, but I'm going to give him 3.25 stars, and Waller is going to have a nice week with 4 stars. And that's all I've got.
All right, let's move along to the Cleveland Browns against the Los Angeles Chargers, 2 of my preseason loves. And as far as like just overall teams, a lot of that is due to Nick Chubb on the Browns side, and
y'all have an open relationship.
Herbie and Eckler on the Chargers side. But let's start with Baker Mayfield. He is one of those rare, better in real life quarterbacks than fantasy quarterbacks. Even though he had a favorable matchup against the Texans, he scored 18.5 fantasy points. Baker is a 2 quarterback league bye-week quarterback. That's really or if you went like stars scrub with quarterback in a 2 quarterback league, Baker Mayfield. Seeing as how there aren't any bye weeks this week, Chris. That's next week, by the way. I'm giving Baker 1 star. The Chargers are allowing just 14 points per game to quarterbacks. Keep Baker on your bench slash waiver wire. Let's move along to Nick Chubb here. 3 3/4 stars here. I want to say more, but Nick Chubb hasn't exactly been the greatest so far this year. He's been decent, but not like where I was kind of touting like top 5 overall Nick Chubb. The Chargers are top half against the running backs, allowing just 17.7 points per game to opposing running backs. That is as a team group collective of running backs. Chubb doesn't get you much through the air, and LA is giving up close to 115 rushing yards per game. So I do like Chubb this week, 3 3/4 stars here. Kareem Hunt, I'm giving 3 1/4 stars or 3.25 stars, just so you don't get confused. The running back does Chubb, or sorry, not Chubb. Hunt is the running back that does do the work through the air, and he's averaging 5 targets per game, 3 receptions, and 30 receiving yards. He does get a touchdown here and there, so you can definitely start Kareem Hunt.
For sure.
Probably not my favorite option, but whatever. Odell Beckham, has been a disappointment, and a lot of that is due to Baker, and also, he hasn't played a whole lot so far this year. He's averaging just 7.7 points per game in the games that he has played. You could say that he's still not quite up to form because of his ACL injury, but that was literally almost we're like 2 weeks shy of that being a calendar year ago. That's
fair.
I can't really say that I can justify that as an excuse anymore. I can maybe more use that as it's a low passing volume from Baker Mayfield, and when he does throw the ball, he really is spreading it around well. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just
Yeah.
taking it, and it's just butter on the bread, and he just spreads it. Um, that sounded really creepy, me saying it like that. So I'm
It
giving
puts the
Odell Beckham
butter.
2 3/4 stars, and that's about the only pass catching option other than Kareem Hunt that I'm really banking on from the Browns.
Mhm.
So let's move along to my Chargers here. Or I'm a Colts fan, not a Chargers fan. I just said my Chargers. But let's talk about Herbie here. Justin Herbert, like Baker, he's actually been performing better as a real life football quarterback than a fantasy quarterback, and he has done well against some difficult opponents. The Cowboys give up a lot of yards but create a lot of turnovers. He has beaten the Chiefs in Arrowhead,
Mhm.
etc. Herbie's on pace for over 4,500 yards and 36 touchdowns this season. That's all great. He's only averaging a little over 20 fantasy points per game, which puts him at I didn't put it down, I didn't write it down, but it's like quarterback 12 on the season so far, and like just inside the
The
quarterback one,
starters.
which is
Yeah.
kind of a weird state of affairs considering I won a championship with Donovan McNabb, just barely getting over 3,000 passing yards and 30 touchdowns one year, 28 touchdowns I think he had that year. That was a long time ago though, folks. So at times have changed. The Browns are good defense and probably the best on paper that Justin Herbert has faced so far. On like I said, and don't get mad at me, Chris. On paper, 3.5
Oh
stars
yeah.
for Herbie here.
Definitely
He
better than
has
Dallas.
not really been the. I think when you see all these highlights, that's what they are. They're highlights. They're not actual like you put it all together. It's not really the greatest fantasy day from Herbie so far this season.
Would
Austin
agree.
Eckler, though, let's call him the amazing fantasy Eckler that really didn't work
Yes.
out. How about Stone Cold Austin? I
Yes.
know it's supposed to be Steve Austin, and then it didn't really work out either. We're working on it, all right, folks. He's the RB2 so far this year. The RB2. Eckler is playing great after disappointing week one. Eckler has over 100 scrimmage yards in every single game other than week one. The Browns have fared rather well against the run, but the best back they've faced so far is the hobbled Dalvin Cook last week, and David Montgomery, where he was virtually the only player on the Bears offense that produced. Outside of 1 yard, he was. On to Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Oh, sorry, 4 stars for Austin Eckler. On to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Keenan Allen is still the target hog for the Chargers and Justin Herbert. He has 10 more targets than Mike Williams on this season, but Williams has 3 touchdowns versus Keenan Allen's 1. Sounds like Greg Newsome, the cornerback for the Browns, isn't going to play this week, and he is their best graded cornerback. But that doesn't mean that the other two will have an easy week. That doesn't mean that Michael Williams and Keenan Allen will have an easy week. PFF has every Browns cornerback ranked at 34th or better. So they literally have every one of their cornerbacks or almost a top.
Starters on every other team,
Yeah,
basically top 36.
on any other team. Thank you for saying that. They're a starter for any other defense in the team in the league, but they have them all.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I'm giving Keenan Allen 3.5 stars and Mike Williams 3 3/4 stars, mainly based on the touchdown factor. And if you make it a full PPR and if it's a full PPR league, maybe bump Keenan Allen up to that 3 3/4 stars along with Mike Williams. Jared Cook, it's not the greatest matchup. And other than last week, Cook last week against the Raiders, where Cook got his first touchdown of the season, he hasn't really done much, but I'm going to give him that 2.5 stars tight end dart throw sort of thing. I know I'm kind of waffling or kind of all over the map on that tight end dart throw rating, but some matchups are a little bit better than others for tight ends. So that's why they get a slightly different tight end dart throw rating. What's your next matchup, Chris? I have one left.
My next matchup is the New York Football Giants at my Dallas Cowboys. Good old
Wait, what,
Danny.
really? Oh, yeah, that's right. You're last.
Yeah. Good old Danny Dimes. As
This is insane, folks. Listen to him because I'm not sure what he's going to say here, but keep going, man.
As I think Josh mentioned about a week ago, should I say, Daniel Jones is actually playing pretty well. He's running the ball well, throwing for an average of 296 yards per game. And the Giants defense is not that good, so it gives comeback and garbage time opportunities to this young athletic quarterback, especially versus high-powered offenses like this week. The Cowboys have played opportunistically, second in the league with 10 takeaways, but are very much a bend, don't break, then break a little here, break a little there. Defense.
Bend a little bit more, bend a little bit more.
Bend a little here on the left.
Get an interception, kind of go back to not bending so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are second worst in passing yards surrendered with 1,261 passing yards. 9 passing touchdowns given up puts them in sixth worst. And they give up the fourth most fantasy points to the quarterback. I'm going to give Danny Dimes 5 stars. Yep, I said those. I said those words. I said those words.
That's a spicy meatball you got going on there. Yep. 5 stars
in a matchup versus my favorite team. Onward to Saquon. Dallas gives up the 6th least points to running backs, but a lot of that is the fact teams have to pass and can pass versus them. Furthermore, the best back Dallas has faced is Austin Eckler, and he had a very nice day with 54 rushing yards, but, and particularly through the air, caught all 9 of his targets for 61 yards. Saquon has seen decent target numbers lately, with 14 targets in the last 2 weeks, and scored 3 times in the last couple of weeks, one of them receiving.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep. He is part of the attack and is dynamic in garbage time. I'm going to give him 4 stars. Sterling Shepard did not practice with a hamstring, just like Slayton. Onward to Galladay. Galladay now has a groin after coming off a hip and a hamstring.
I have a groin too, Chris.
Right. Well, he's got a problem with his. Just after coming off. I do
not have a problem with mine.
Right after coming off a hamstring and a hip. I do like whichever wide receiver plays for the Giants this week, but seriously, it's now or never for Galladay. He has 2 tough matchups after Dallas where you probably can't start him. Assuming Galladay goes and Shepard doesn't, I'm going to give 3.5 tentative stars to Galladay because I believe in Daniel Jones here. Yeah.
So my quick question for you, Chris, is like, shouldn't man, I'm sorry, man. I'm blanking on his name, but the Diggs cornerback for the Cowboys, isn't he going to probably cover Galladay, and wouldn't that kind of make him a lesser play this week?
Okay, it could. Again, Dallas' defense is very opportunistic.
Trevon Diggs, I knew that. I'm sorry. And Trayvon plays mainly from the outside too. I'm looking at it right now.
I think it's kind of baked into 3.5 stars.
He's only PFF's number 31 cornerback. That seems a little low, but okay. He's played well.
Teams have been passing all over him still.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It's true.
Evan Ingram, if you're really desperate, why not? Dallas is kind of leaky versus tight end, giving up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends.
What's he done so far this year?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. 2.25 stars as a desperate, very desperate. Kind of to your point, maybe that's more like a 2 stars earlier. From
7 receptions, 48 yards.
Yeah, it's bad.
Also has a fumble that he lost.
Mm-hmm. But hey,
yikes!
Garbage time, and no Sterling Shepard and no Darius Slayton. On to the Cowboys. I mean, what needs to be said about Dak here? He's playing like an MVP, and Dallas is showing that they can win in multiple ways depending on their opponent. The Giants give up the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. I'm going to give 5 stars to Dak. Zeke. Washington seems to be a bit susceptible to receiving backs, having given up their 2 biggest days to McKissick and Cordero Patterson. Yet, Gordon and Kamara had nice days on the ground. Zeke is the RB4 in the year and had his best game last week versus a darn good Carolina defense. Dallas is hot right now, and I think both backs can do some damage here. I'm going to give 4 stars for Zeke. Pollard is the running back 26 on the year, but most of that came in week 2 versus the Chargers.
Exactly.
Still, both guys are getting opportunities. I'm seeing them on the field together a little bit here. I'm going to give a tentative 3 stars for Pollard to keep him in the top 36 as a flex. Amari is a wide receiver 16. The wide receivers is where the shine has really worn off on this very good Dallas attack. Target numbers are plummeted as the running backs and tight ends have had the success. That's
Jerks.
3.5 targets per game over the last 2 weeks for Amari, and 4 targets per game over the last 2 weeks for CD Lamb.
CD, I know.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to defer to Amari. Just, I don't know. He seems to be the quote better fantasy receiver, I guess. I'm not saying he's a better player overall.
True.
But right now, he's the guy I'm going to defer to. I'm going to give him, again, just a tentative 3 stars, keep him in the top 36. I'm going to say CD's fine if you're in a 3-receiver league or a deeper league, and give him 2.5 stars if you want to go there. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything on Gallup and Wilson. On to the tight ends. I mean, they've really been coexisting.
Well, Gallup's still out.
Yeah, I put a slash here. I was just, sorry, thinking out loud. So Wilson has been fine for just like, again, a really, really deep league there. He's
life football. He's
been fine. He's been catching a couple touchdowns here and there. Onto the tight ends. Again, that's where all the damage is being done. I think Schultz is clearly the one that you want. He's also clearly the one in the offense. However, Jarwin is going out there and catching the occasional 20 or 30 yards and scoring too. So they're definitely scheming them. They're definitely using them both on the field more with Gallup out. Although, again, Cedric Wilson has filled it admirably. I'm going to give 3.5 stars to Schultz and 3 stars to Jarwin. Again, I think the backs feed and the tight ends feed again this week.
Like how in like the chat last week in our Discord, which, you know, hey, look at the show notes for the Discord. But Blake Jarwin scored that first touchdown. The first tight end for Dallas to score the touchdown last week. And I'm like, after $55 and all this, like, Dalton Schultz is the tight end 1 for Dallas. Here comes Blake Jarwin. And you're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's a joke, dude.
Oh, okay. Yes, there you go. No, yeah, it's pretty apparent. But again, they're both involved. For
realsy, so far this year,
Adoree
Jackson for the cornerback for the Giants is PFF's number 24 corner, actually outrating James Bradbury, which last year was like a top 20 corner according to PFF, and Bradbury's is at 53. They're both on the outside, so they're probably CD and is hopefully going to face more of Bradbury, whereas Adoree Jackson who has struggled in years past.
He has.
But when he's on, and so far this year, it looks like he's been on. So it could be a potentially rough matchup, and it could be like you were alluding to. Like, I'm completely agree with you. It could be more of a tight end game again.
Yeah.
CD, and what are you doing to me? And even Dak hasn't been like fantasy gold this year. He's been more like real life, great. You know,
ironically, I did. I did
let's move on to my final
stars.
matchup, Chris, which is the Buffalo Bills at the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to pull up that document here and do a lot of behind the scenes yada yadas and so on and so on. And I'm going to start with Josh Allen. 5 stars for Josh Allen. This is a juicy matchup for both teams. According to the lines.com, as of Wednesday, which is yesterday with our recording, the over-under for this game is 56.5 points. There's going to be a lot of points scored this week. The Chiefs are giving up the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks at 26. So 5 stars for Josh Allen. Zach Moss, I'm giving him 3 3/4 stars or 3.75 stars. The past 2 weeks, Moss has been in on. It's only been 56% of the Bills' offensive snaps, and most of Moss's fantasy value is based on touchdowns. But he has one in every week except for week 1 where he was a healthy scratch, which, I think, just a quick side note on this, I think that healthy scratch was based on some behind the scenes disciplinary reason that we'll probably never ever hear about.
Oh yeah? Okay.
I really think that's what it is. I was thinking about it, I'm like, why would you just do a healthy scratch for him? And it was maybe just it might have been something simple as you weren't pass protecting very well in practice. So week 1 out. Just something to kind of tune him up a little bit. Maybe it was just out of line. He mouthed off to the coach. I don't know what. Well, like I said, we'll probably never hear about it, but I think that's why he was healthy. He was a healthy scratch in week 1.
Okay.
The Chiefs have given up 6 touchdowns to running backs. That is 5 on the ground and 1 through the air. I like Moss to continue his touchdown streak this week. Devin
Nice.
Singletary, I'm going to give him 2.5 stars. You could do worse. Perhaps you're an RB. You need an RB replacement for the loss of Monty or David Montgomery, as he's more widely known. You missed out on Damian Williams. You still have Devin Singletary on your bench. 2.5 stars. The Chiefs are giving up some yardage and definitely touchdowns to running back. So, if you really need a spot start, Devin Singletary, 2.5 stars.
Cool.
Stephon Diggs, the best Chiefs has a PFF grade of 70.8, which is 21st, and that's Mike Hughes, who is really not that good. And I gotta say, Chris, I think PFF got confused. Whoever was doing the data entry for him was entering the data and put in Mike Hughes' jersey number as his rank because his jersey number is also 21. As far as an overall cornerback ranking, I'm not lying. Mike Hughes ain't all that great, dude. So I'm gonna give 5 stars to Stephon Diggs. Cole Beasley, I'm giving you 2.5 stars. You're a low end flex consideration, but Dawson Knox, on the other hand,
How
he's
about
getting
my boy?
3.75 stars.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have held the likes of Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, and Jared Cook.
Yeah.
But to an average of 10.2 fantasy points per game and allowing only 1 touchdown to the tight end position so far. I have has been on fire. No has been on fire, Chris. It's supposed to be Knox. Knox has been on fire. I like him to continue that. He's like literally like NBA Jam rules. He's been on fire. I like him to continue that 3.75 stars. Let's move along to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. 5 stars for Patrick Mahomes as well. The Bills are allowing the least amount of points to the opposing quarterbacks at 8.5 points per game. They've given up just 3 passing touchdowns so far this season. They're averaging less than 1 passing touchdown per game. They've also forced 7 interceptions so far this year and are allowing just 167.2 passing yards per game. Why am I giving Patrick Mahomes 5 stars other than the fact that he's Patrick Mahomes? Here's the caveat.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the quarterbacks they faced. Do you know who this is? It's Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
Tua, Tyler Heineken, whatever, and Davis Gooseneck Mills.
Poor guy.
Those are the guys that are not even close to Patrick Mahomes level. 5 stars for Patrick Mahomes. CH, that would be Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Kind of the same thing with CH as Mahomes, only CH is an average to above average back. Maybe CH continues his touchdown streak here. Maybe. Even though the Bills have faced a column of kittens when it comes to the running backs, they've only allowed 1 touchdown to the position, and that was through the air. So it's 3 stars for CH. I'm just kind of hoping that streak continues for him. As a guy who was, maybe I'm a little biased because I was, he was my RB like 10 or 11, like going like in draft season. So maybe I'm a little biased here. Tyreek Hill, 5 stars, of course. If Pat Mahomes is getting 5 stars, so is Tyreek Hill. The Bills corners have really taken a step back this season. Taron Johnson is the only Bills cornerback with a PFF grade over 50, and he's 18th. And Johnson mainly plays in the slot, and Tyreek lines up all over the hill, so he can easily get himself away from Taron Johnson. 5 stars for Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce, even at the age of 32, he is still a cut above the rest. Like, seriously, if you look at where all the tight ends line up, Travis Kelce is at least like 3 points more per game than any other tight end. And then I'm saying that's at the bare minimum. He's still an elite. He's still playing at an elite level. He is, according to PFF, he is their second best tight end matchup of the week. You're not benching Travis Kelce, even if the Chiefs were playing in a tornado. 5 stars for Travis Kelce. What's your last matchup, Chris? Let's bring us home, buddy.
Niners at Cardinals. Looks like Jimmy G's not going to go. I don't know. Trey Lance intrigues me, but he's probably just outside that top 12. If you're in a super flex, fire him up, fire up his legs. I'm going to give him.
How does he fare versus the opposing defense though? I think that's mainly what I'm interested in.
I'm sorry, in terms of
Like the 49ers are giving up like the fifth most points to fantasy quarterbacks, and if Trey Lance is going to run a little bit,
Oh, you mean Cardinals? You mean Cardinals?
49ers.
You said I'm talking about Trey
Oh,
Lance.
I'm looking at it backwards. I'm
You
sorry.
are okay. Cool.
Well, I mean, he has
You
to
threw
go
me
up
off.
against their defense in practice, Chris. Okay, just throw me a
Right.
freaking bone here.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, but it just again a lot of our conversation is single quarterback leagues. So
I'm gonna go over here now.
I'm getting a tentative. I don't know. I'm gonna go through 3 stars. That's pretty aggressive, I think. It obviously keeps him in the superflex conversation for sure.
And there's the potential rushing ability that I think that gives him that.
And in the very limited time we've seen him, he's looked amazing. It's just, hey, it's all drawn up plays for him to run and this and that. So 3 stars. On to Elijah Mitchell. He is, quote, expected to return. I read that during the show, actually.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. I may not still have that tweet pulled up, forgive me, but I did read it verbatim.
That helps my 3-1 dynasty squad. My building in progress, or
yeah,
I'm sorry, building on the fly dynasty squad.
There you go. Sermon did run well in his stead, but I'm expecting Mitchell to go. 4 stars for Mitchell. Bench Sermon, no value there. Looks like they prefer Mitchell's speed. On to Debo. He is a wide receiver 3 on the season. The Cards are 11th best in passing yards, but Debo is averaging 10.5 targets per game. Given that I like Lance in a flex kind of quarterback 2 spectrum, I'm going to give Debo 4 stars. No other receivers I'm going to throw into that hat.
Yeah, it's been Kittle, Debo, and that's kind of about it. At least with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even Kittle's
and Debo is like it's extremely exceeded expectations.
For sure. Yeah, I think it was the other day I was listening to a particular show, and it was just the surprise names thrown at receiver were just it was astonishing, and Debo was one of them. Throwing DJ Moore, I guess, also in there.
Well, considering that, like and I know we're running a little long here, and I'm going to pause you because it's your last matchup. But I mean, like considering that everyone was in on Brandon Ayuk over Deebo Samuel, but even Ayuk was going as like a wide receiver, like 22-ish in ADP, and Deebo is now like the wide receiver like 9, I think, without looking it up. He's definitely well within the top 10, like top 12, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I can pull it up here on the fly, but I'm not going to. But like just that kind of return is just amazing.
Yep.
I'm just sorry. I'm like
fine.
he is on my dynasty squad, and he's one of the reasons why I'm at 3-1. But still, like I'm just like I just think it's like something worth highlighting in the fact that like if you're just a casual listener and you just happen to stumble upon the show, Deebo Samuel is a name.
Well,
that you need to keep in mind.
Yeah, I just remember being.
And you're not gonna get him cheap if you want to try and trade for him.
Yeah, I just remember kind of waffling on him because I was kind of high on him, and he really kind of came out of the gate. But then Ayuk kind of obviously Debo got hurt, and Ayuk
Ayuk stalled at the gate, and Deebo Samuel he was like it's like he strapped a rocket pack to his back as far as like fantasy value. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sorry. Keep going.
You're good.
I really interrupted there.
On to Kittle. I mean, the frustrating thing with Kittle is he's nursing injury right now, and he's playing. I know that sounds weird to be like, oh, he's playing, but he's not playing all that great. Go back 2 weeks ago versus Green Bay in week 3, solid 9 targets, caught 7 of them for 92 yards, 10 fantasy points. You're kind of like, okay, I've dodged a bullet for another week, but he comes out with a stinker last week, 11 targets, but only caught 4 of them. So we're getting a quarterback change. That's going to put things up in kind of limbo there. I'm not in love with him, but you just can't sit him. The feel I get from reading the updates on his injury is this is kind of their weekly thing they go through lately with the, I believe it's calf injury. It's back at the top of my matchup or my injuries. He's nursing a calf injury. So I'm going to go and put him out there, but definitely temper your expectations. The Cardinals are 3rd best in terms of fantasy points given up to the tight end position.
I'm sorry, keep going.
So I'm going to give him, like I said, you got to start him. So let's go 2.75 stars and just make him a low end tight end 1, the tight end 12 or 13 or 14 or 11, right in that area. I just that's where he's at right now until he gets healthy. And I don't know their bye week off the top of my head, but that's probably what it's going to take. On to the Cardinals. I mean, it's a good matchup. Kyler is playing MVP football. Niners have given the 7th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. This is a division game. I expect a good game.
You say you're not going to say 5 stars for Kyler.
I'm going to say 5 stars for Kyler. I feel like that's kind of my theme. Okay, in the first few weeks of the season, I feel like I've been very conservative. This week, I feel like
I gave him 4.25 stars last week.
That's true. That's true. All right, so you broke the streak. You broke the streak for us, and then you handed it to me. Chase Edmonds. Okay, let's get down to this because this is a little more actionable. RB18. He did not practice Thursday with a shoulder, but it's kind of again what they're doing for him. He's taken. I didn't put his snaps, but it's like in the 70s or high 60%. Connor is only getting 41.
He's about 63%.
Okay, there you go. Connor is getting 41.75% of the snaps, so he's just a desperation.
They do overlap a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, he's a desperation goal line throw there, but just a great floor for Chase Edmonds with 5.5 targets per game. The Niners give the 7th most fantasy points to running backs. I am going to give Chase Edmonds 4 stars.
And assuming he doesn't play, what would you give
Connor in his stead?
Yes, sorry.
I mean, he's healthy and has fresh legs. Yeah,
3 3/4.
I'll go 3. Yeah, 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars.
Okay.
Because I gave 4 to Chase.
We're about in the same boat.
He's the better player.
Assuming Chase Edmonds can't play.
Right. Here's the question of the week or the season. Do you know what to do with the Arizona Cardinal receivers, Josh? You just play Nuke every week?
Banging my head against the wall like I do every time I give myself the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Which, side note, you're getting the Bucs for the rest of the season because I hate getting into it is the matchup that takes the longest going through all those stats and everything for the Bucs. So I'm gonna give them to you for the rest of the season. I have that power. I sort of do, I guess. And I don't want to do it with the Cards either. So I'm going to give those to you, and I'll just take every other team, and you can just have those two because they take me the longest. It's literally like a 2-to-1 ratio on those two matchups. It is brutal doing research on them.
So as far as
for reals though, like DeAndre Hopkins was a little injured.
I was just going to get to that.
So you can kind of give that to that.
I was going to say
some of it was some matchup based, like, oh, let's take D-Hop away.
But even AJ Green and Rondale Moore and Kirk are just like complete dart throws every week. Like I think Kyler is playing on another level, and he's just whoever's open.
He don't care about your fantasy team.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get down the nitty gritty. Again, I just think the offense just hits the open guy too much. But Nuke is nursing an injury, kind of like Kittle is, so I expect brighter days ahead. He's just the type of player that's going to go out there and still produce.
Stay away from Max Williams.
Oh, I'm sorry, Max Williams. Oh, cornerback?
He's their tight end.
Oh, no. Well, yeah, I wasn't referring to that. Yeah, no. So let's just give Nuke a startable 3.25 stars. Let's bench the rest of them.
Let's give them all 3 stars for now, man.
All 3 stars and just go with it. Yeah. It's so crazy with the quarterback playing so well and having such a hard time figuring out the fantasy assets.
You know who you want off of this team? You want Chase Edmonds, you want Kyler Murray, and
that's it.
And if you have Nuke, trade him on name value at the moment, and hope that you can get a decent running back from him or a decent.
Yeah, because there's probably
pretty
teams
good wide
out there
receiver / a running back dart throw.
Because there's probably teams out there with like Nuke and Cooper Kupp, like they got him in the 3rd or 4th or whatever, and so they're like, okay, I've got like the wide receiver 1 now, and maybe I can deal Nuke.
Dude, if I have Cooper Kupp, I'm not trading him. Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, I'm sorry. Were you done with that matchup or not?
That was it. Yeah,
interjecting
I benched all the other passing options for Arizona. Nuke got a very 3.25 stars just to get him in your lineups and hope for brighter days ahead. The Niners are not good.
Bang your head against the wall when they score 20 points on your bench. Like, just...
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I love Rondale Moore. You know that. I love Kirk, too.
I know. We liked Captain Kirk, too. I know. Anyways.
That's the show, Josh.
Chris, our time is getting long and the day is getting old and we're getting older. So why don't we call this a wrap? We appreciate you checking out the show. As I've mentioned before in the episode, that you can check us out on Sunday mornings, where Chris hosts
Right here on YouTube.
The Coffee with Amazing Fantasy Football. You get the last minute injury updates, like literally last minute. We try and go up till game kickoff, but
Right.
sometimes not.
But the injury is the
But
first portion of the
you also
show,
get
yeah.
our Monday night matchup analysis. You also can join in the chat and ask us questions about asking for a friend. Just last minute lineup decisions too. We get so many people coming in and just kind of popping in and sometimes it's not even just like friends, just like randos like popping in and just being like,
Lineup
hey, what about
questions.
this person or
A
this
lot of lineup
person? Thanks,
questions,
peace. Like, and that's cool. Like, I love doing that for people. I love doing that for people at work.
Mhm.
I love y'all coming in and popping in and just giving us that view. Like, share, subscribe wherever on Facebook. If you are checking us out on Facebook, like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Why didn't I say Facebook? I hate Facebook. If you are checking us out on YouTube, not Facebook, you can check us out in podcast format, pretty much wherever podcasts are available. You can even check out, you can even get our podcast from Heidi behind your local, kind of
Quickie Mart.
terrible Burger King. Which, by the way, the BK like spicy chicken sandwich around here is divine. It really is.
Is it going to give
Quick plug for them.
Popeyes?
Not getting paid for that plug either.
Mm.
It is just good. Anyways, and I hate fast food, folks. I am a bit of a food snob, as you can tell by my fatso-ness.
Wrap it up.
Take us home, Josh. So that has been our show. Like I said, you can if you're listening to us in podcast format, you can check us out on YouTube. Please like, share, subscribe wherever possible. Leave us a comment. Chris always likes it when you leave us a comment. I do as well, but I am very antisocial, so I don't really want to comment to people in the comments and talk to people. So that's been our show. Chris has as a Twitch channel that you can kind of check out. He does some PC building and some gaming over there. You can check him out at Hardware Dynasty on Twitch. Usually when he's streaming, you'll find this guy, which is ShySock66, in the chat. So until next time, folks, which is Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Central, we'll see y'all then.
See you then.
Or until next week, Friday mornings is when the pod/show comes out. Peace out.